I am a die-hard Evil Dead fan, and this is a remake that I find to be just as good as the original. Maybe even better. Let's do it. So, Evil Dead 2013 opens up with this young girl who's tied up in a basement, and her father is there, and there is also a woman who is reciting incantations. So, the girl at first seems fine, but then her father is basically telling her, like, you killed your mother, you cannot go home. The girl looks all confused and is trying to plead with her father to take her home, but when he's not buying it, she looks at him and says, I will rip your soul out, and then turns into a demon. So, her father sets her on fire and shoots her. So, a little while later, we meet a group of friends who is going to a remote cabin in the woods. So, we have David, his girlfriend Natalie, David's sister Mia, their dog Grandpa, and their friends Eric and Olivia. Now, the reason that they're there is that Mia is a heroin addict, so the group is staying with her in the cabin so that she can withdraw basically and overcome her addiction. So, Mia makes this dramatic vow. She pours the rest of her heroin down a well, and then the withdrawals begin. So, some time passes. Mia's obviously very ill, and she starts complaining about this smell that she can't stand. Basically saying that it smells like something died, but nobody else can smell it. So they all think that Mia's crazy until they find a trap door in the floor that leads to a basement. And in the basement, they find a bunch of rotting animal carcasses, they find a shotgun, and they also find a book. Now, Eric takes this book, which is quite literally wrapped in barbed wire, and all over it, it says, do not read. I would argue that Eric here is the stupidest character in a horror movie ever, because he literally cuts through the barbed wire and ignores all of the signs saying do not read and decides to read an incantation from the fucking book. And this book is none other than the Necronomicon. So as he's reading this, Mia is outside walking through the woods in the rain, and she starts to get sick and she looks up and she sees this demonic figure in the woods. So she obviously freaks out and she steals Eric's car and starts driving off but crashes the car. So then this unseen force chases her into the woods where she is attacked by these vines and possessed through them. So Mia starts acting even weirder. Everybody thinks it's just because she's going through the withdrawals, but then David finds his dog bludgeoned to death in the shed. And a little bit later, they find Mia in a scalding hot shower, literally burning the skin off of her own face. And then things just proceed to get absolutely out of hand. She finds a shotgun and shoots David and wounds him. And then she attacks Olivia and vomits all of this bile onto her. Really gross scene. But then during the struggle, Eric manages to push Mia into the basement where they lock her in. So Olivia goes to clean herself up, but we very quickly see that she is not well either, and now she's possessed through the bile that Mia just threw up onto her. So Eric goes to check on her, not knowing that she has now become possessed, and she attacks him with a needle. There's this really gross scene where he has to pull the needle out of his eye. It's fucking disgusting. And Eric, being attacked and really having no other option, bludgeons Olivia to death with a piece of porcelain. Mia's still locked in the basement, but then she sees Natalie and starts talking to her like she's still Mia and manages to lure Natalie into the basement to come help her. But she very quickly turns back into possessed Mia and bites Natalie's hand, and then there's that scene where she licks the knife and cuts her own tongue in half. It's vile. David finds Natalie and helps her escape, but then she goes to the kitchen and realizes that something is not right with the hand that was bitten by Mia. She realizes that she is being possessed through this wound, so she quickly cuts her arm off with this thing. Meanwhile, Eric tells David, I think what's happening to Mia has something to do with the shit we found in the basement. No shit, you fucking idiot. This is all your fault. So Eric explains that according to the book, he awoke the Taker of Souls, which has to claim 5 souls. And by doing this, they will release the abomination. And the only way to stop it is by purifying the original person who was possessed, aka Mia. And they can do that through burying her alive, burning her, or dismembering her. As they're discussing this, a now possessed Natalie comes in and attacks them with a nail gun. So cutting off her arm didn't even work. Again, it's absolute chaos. Everybody's getting shot with nails, but then David manages to get the shotgun and shoot Natalie and kill her. So David decides he's got to do what Eric says, and he's got to kill Mia to release her soul, basically. So David starts to douse the house in gasoline, but then decides that he's actually going to bury Mia. But as he's going to dig the grave, he is attacked by Mia. But Eric, who is severely injured, jumps in and manages to save him, but is then fatally stabbed to death. Least he could fucking do for starting this whole mess. So David ends up sedating Mia with a sedative that Olivia brought because she was a nurse, and he puts a bag over her head and he starts to bury her. But Mia wakes up and starts taunting him, but he continues to bury her anyway. So he buries her and then digs her back up because his plan is he was going to let her die and then resuscitate her to hopefully get rid of the evil entity. And it works. It's a really dramatic scene. You don't know if she's going to wake up or not, but she does, and she's back to her normal self. So David goes back inside to get the car keys to get them the fuck out of there. But while he's in there, a now possessed and reanimated Eric stabs him. So David throws Mia the keys and then sacrifices himself by shooting a gas can, which then sets the whole house on fire. And because he dies, and because Mia technically died, that is the 5th claim soul that was needed. So now the sky opens up and blood starts pouring. So Mia is then attacked by the abomination, but manages to saw its legs off with a chainsaw. legs gone. But then it knocks over David's Jeep, which falls on Mia's arm. And in another really gross scene, Mia just like pulls herself out and her whole hand comes off. And she does that as this thing is crawling towards her to kill her, but she gets out in the nick of time and then chainsaws it to the head. And the movie ends with it sinking into the mud, defeated as Mia leaves.